Before I say the prayer, I want to congratulate Charlie and maybe tell a story on Charlie. I'm afraid there are going to be a lot of stories told on Charlie tonight, many of which will not be repeated to our children, to your children. But this is a story that kind of illustrates who Charlie is and why he's getting the award, in my opinion. So Father Bede was your all's form master for the first form. Father Bede is the oldest monk, not just in Dallas, but also in the congregation. So he's the oldest monk in Dallas and in Hungary. He just turned 92, and he had a major stroke before Christmas, but he's recovering wonderfully. But I went to see Father Bede yesterday, and he said, "Oh, Peter, you can go on home. Charlie was already here." But it's that love for his form master, for the teachers, and just you and Emily used to do that with Father Melchior, and so I thank you very much for your dedication and support of all of us.
I am most pleased and grateful to be joining you all this evening in honoring tonight's most deserving Jim and Lynn Moroney Award recipient, Mr. Charlie Williams, class of '70. What a tremendous blessing Charlie has been to the school throughout the decades and to our alumni as well. At this time, I ask Charlie's classmate, his lifelong friend, Kevin Johnson of class of '70, to please come forward to introduce him.
Well, good evening, everybody. I've been approached by many people tonight asking if I was going to roast Charlie. It will not be a roast. This is going to be an Academy Award. We're way too old to be doing that. So, anyway, it is my honor to be chosen to introduce my close friend and classmate, Mr. Charlie Williams, as the recipient of the 2020 Jim and Lynn Moroney Award. Even though my wife Joni and I moved to Walnut Creek, California, over 40 years ago, the Johnstons and the Williams have remained close. We both have 3 daughters, darn near the same age, and both of our first 2 grandchildren were born within hours of each other. I know Charlie pretty well, and I hope to introduce Charlie to those of you that don't know him, and I will try to summarize some of the amazing things that he has done with Emily always at his side. The Moroney Award is given annually to an alumnus whose spiritual commitment to Cistercian is very much aflame, and whose dedicated work on behalf of the Cistercian family enkindles our hope for the future. Charlie will tell you he's not worthy. Charlie is the most humble person I know. He's the guy that does the work and gives all the credit to others. I knew that Charlie did many wonderful things, but I had no idea of Charlie's the extent of his commitment to his community. Charlie's not one to toot his own horn, but I feel that his caring personality should be exposed tonight with the understanding that anything you hear doesn't leave this room. Charlie has been doing Meals on Wheels every Monday for 15 years. The people love him and he loves them. When Charlie's Yukon drives up with his trusty chauffeur, Emily, the recipients and their dogs come to life. He has treats for the dogs and lunches for his friends. Often fixes stuck doors, changes light bulbs, or just sits, talks, and listens. He has loved and lost many people on this route over the years. Charlie and Emily lived in Southlake for 19 years and attended Mass at St. Francis, where Father Balthazar was the pastor. Charlie trained altar servers, taught Sunday school to 6th graders, and he and Emily ran the church's Community Fest. Charlie was Father B's, as Charlie and Emily affectionately called Father Balthazar, go-to guy. Father B would call Charlie and say, "Williams, I need you to stand up in Mass and ask for money to build onto a church." He did, and a new church was built. He once called and said, "Charlie, we have a family that needs mattresses for beds." Charlie and Emily bought them and had them delivered. Whatever Father B asked, Charlie tried his best to deliver. Charlie is block captain of his Briarwood Neighborhood Crime Watch Association. Whenever there is a need for legal advice, he's their guy, and it happens way more often than you can imagine. As you can see, Charlie is unique and a well-deserved recipient of this award. I have known Charlie since 1963, when I joined the class of '70. The first school year of Cistercian was 1962, with 2 classes of 25, representing the graduating class of 1970 and 1971. The class of 71 graduated 11. The class of 70 graduated 18. Only the strong survived. The early classes of Cistercian had the honor of growing up with Fathers Damien, Matthew, Henry, Bede, Aloysius, Balthazar, Placid, Julius, Rock, Daniel, our form master, Father Melchior, Father Dennis, and of course, Father Abbot Anselm, who watched over everybody. They were young, mature, and wise beyond their years. They had been subjected to unimaginable hardship during and post World War II. We were oblivious to their journey to Dallas. We were their worst nightmare. Our class benefited from these role models, and after graduation, we were released to the real world, removed from the security of our small class, no longer the upperclassmen. It became obvious that Charlie was going to keep our class together. Charlie became the first, current, and only class representative. Even though our class had gone off to college and settled across the country, Charlie stayed in touch, refusing to let that bond we had all developed with each other fade away. Charlie kept us informed of all that was going on with the Cistercian community, and he and Emily always organized and hosted reunions, as well as opening up their house for any classmate that might pop into town unannounced. Charlie is not only the class of 70 ambassador, but he has also made it his mission to keep up with the monastery. Charlie checks in on the monks of Cistercian, especially those that we grew up with. Charlie always informs us of any illness or special event. When our dear form master, Father Melchior's health was failing, Charlie and Emily visited him often and made sure he was comfortable. He sent out weekly and sometimes daily emails to let us know Father Melchior's status. Charlie was chosen to speak at Father Melchior's funeral mass. I was looking at the list of Moroney recipients over the past 28 years, one of whom is my brother in 2003, and Charlie was his presenter. Charlie will now be the oldest Cistercian alumnus of the Moroney Award recipients. It'll be kind of like being an upperclassman again. There are not enough superlatives to describe Charlie, but some might be intelligent, a man of high integrity, a person respected by his peers, athletic, a sports historian. Charlie could have had a career in sports broadcasting with his voice and quick wit. He is a gifted musician on both the guitar and banjo. He is a low handicap golfer and travels around the US, Scotland, and Ireland with his golf buddies, playing some of the best courses in the world. Charlie graduated from Vanderbilt, where he was often seen chasing Emily around campus, or roaming the clubs of Nashville with his guitar, playing Rocky Top to anyone who would listen. Charlie then graduated from SMU Law and had a successful career as a partner at Blaylock & Williams law firm. But most importantly, Charlie is a family man, a great husband and dad. Charlie and his lovely wife Emily have 3 beautiful daughters and 4 grandchildren. Emily once told me, after we listened to Charlie and laughed at one story after another, that she wakes up in the morning and goes to bed at night having laughed at something Charlie said or did every day of her life. I'd like to read you a text that Charlie sent asking me to be his presenter, a small sample of Charlie's extreme humility and humor. Good Sunday, Kevin. In a terrible lapse of judgment, Cistercian has given me the Moroney Award. All of the prior recipients have either saved the lives of priests or built churches or sculptures of God, or chaired alumni things or building campaigns or scholarship committees, or graduated from Harvard, or been captains of industry. Then there is me. Ridiculous. But realizing they were coming up on the 50th anniversary of the first graduating, without at least one soul from our class being considered before, I'll allow the CPS nomination people to feel panicked and guilty. And will reluctantly accept, I guess. I need somebody as a presenter like I did for Stephen. I'll start with you since you're my best friend among that cast of odd ducks, me included. If you won't do it, I will wait until the day before and ask Stephen, like he did to me. If he won't do it, I guess it's down to Bovis or Lancione. Bovis and Lancione were members of our original class that didn't quite make it. A few days after answering this text from Charlie, accepting his offer, I have to admit I watched videos of previous presenters of the Moroney Award. I called Charlie and told him that the presenters were between 20 and 25 minutes, and I didn't know if I could talk that long, hoping Charlie would be sympathetic. Charlie said he watched also, but don't worry, 20 minutes would be fine. Like I said, Charlie's a funny guy. So I decided that no one in this audience wants to listen to me when the man to whom this award is being presented will entertain all of you like only Charlie can. Charlie, the class of 70, the pioneer class, is proud of you, and we love you. Before you come up, I'd like to read a few comments from classmates and others, many of whom are in attendance. Tom St. Maxons. Charlie is a valued member of the Fighting Mulligans, a team of golfers that has participated in the Blue Ridge Ryder Cup golf tournament in Pennsylvania every fall for the last 27 years. This would come as no surprise to anyone who knows Charlie, but he even wrote and composed the Blue Ridge Ryder Cup anthem. With the exception of Lee Sandlin, all of us Fighting Mulligans live elsewhere in the U.S. and will not be able to attend the awards dinner, but would like to make a $250 contribution to the event in the name of the Fighting Mulligans. Jim Pritchett. Congratulations, Charlie. Well-deserved, respected by all. Monty Atkinson, class agent for life, apparently. Tim Sullivan. I was fortunate enough to spend many of my early years with Charlie at Christ the King, Cistercian, and Vanderbilt. I fondly remember starting our earliest entrepreneurial forays, mowing yards for friends, family, and some of Charlie's early girlfriends. Lots of Dr. Pepper provided by his very sweet mother and grandmother. Charlie is a great friend, father, employer, community leader, bringing humor, intelligence, and respect to everyone fortunate enough to be part of his community. Congratulations, Charlie, and the Cistercian community for showing us all that can be done with the guiding light we can share with others. We go forward together, always and forever. Bill Wood. Charles, a wizard, a true star. That was actually the title of Todd Rundgren's fourth album following his run as frontman for the group Nas, a band burned into the psyche of the 1970 graduating class. You see, Charlie is a wizard. He has managed to keep the class of 70 connected as we settled throughout the country and will always be a shining star in my mind. Charlie was part of our transition from a not-so-subservient Cistercian pupil to somewhat productive almost adults. The bottom line, however, is that Charles is a genuinely caring man who, along with his equally soulful partner, Emily, have made a difference in many people's lives. Wizards, true stars. Congratulations, Charles. Well-deserved, my man. Carry on. A short story from Father Rock. I've been in touch with Charlie throughout the years, prepared him and Emily for their marriage, saw how much Charlie loved and helped Father Balthazar in Grapevine Parish, and he spoke at his wake in our church. He interviewed me about comparing his class and the other first classes with Cistercian students now, and wrote a good, long article about it. This may not be an exciting story, but shows his wonderful loyalty and love for Cistercian. Charlie's article, addressed to the 2019 graduating class, can be found in the Continuum archives. The last comment I'd like to read is from an underclassman, a freshman when we were seniors. I think of Charlie as part of the couple, Charlie and Emily. They have in a sense together let the light of Cistercian shine, coming together to Mass, helping Father Balthazar together in Grapevine, supporting the guys in the class of 70 together, visiting Father Melchior in the nursing home together. And Emily helped us out in the prep school by teaching science when I was in need. I guess I think of them as a couple, and that is a real tribute to Charlie and to Emily. He has always been quick to sing Emily's praises and express his admiration for her. Father Abbot Peter Verhalen. Ladies and gentlemen, the recipient of the 2020 Jim and Lynn Moroney Award, Mr. Charlie Williams.
Thanks, Kevin. I fully expected Kevin to spend quite a bit of time demeaning me this evening. He had every opportunity to, but he played it straight. And I had prepared all kinds of comments that were equally demeaning for Kevin. Just embarrassing experiences and everything. And now I can't say anything, so thanks a lot, Kevin. Now I'm screwed. And I actually had like 10 minutes of stuff on Kevin, so I don't even know. I guess I have to finish up rather quickly. But I really can't adequately express how honored I am to be standing here this evening and just almost overcome. And it may sound like hyperbole, but when Father Paul called and Aaron and said that I had been elected the recipient of the Moroney Award, it was surreal. It really was. And I walked in to tell Emily, and I can barely even remember it. I was just deer in the headlight. It was just a moment. And I'm such a Cistercian guy, and always have been. Just like not unlike my fellow reprobates in the class of 1970. That I said it, as I said in my overly long bio, this really is one of the greatest honors of my life. It really is. And as I jotted these things down, I realized that I just called all my best friends for 58 years, reprobates. And so I said, well, I'm the kind of guy that, will use a word and then go back and worry that it was wrong rather than looking it up before I use it. And so I went back to look up reprobate. Beads of perspiration popping on my forehead. And reprobate is a depraved, unprincipled, wicked person beyond hope of salvation. Close. But the next definition was it says an unprincipled person often used humorously or affectionately. So you guys are somewhere in between there. You are in fact reprobates. You can't get past that. So and reprobates is a long word. And shame on me for using a word I didn't even know what it meant. It's just like I'm an attorney, and we're taught for the very first year in law school that never say anything in one word when you could use 15 words to say exactly the same thing. And I want to call out Father Peter. He sent me a text the other day, and in that text he said he was looking forward to my apotheosis. And I said, all right. I don't know whether I'm looking forward to it or not. So I looked it up. And it's an elevation or exaltation of a person to the rank of a god, the ideal example, the epitome, the quintessence. And Father Peter, you're going to be so disappointed in me this evening because I'm not going to get nearly close to an apotheosis, but I do appreciate the compliment. First, I want to thank my friends and my family and the rest of the Cistercian community for joining me here this evening. This is a humbling experience that I'm really not used to. And I just haven't had anything like this in my life. I just want to say thanks for sharing the evening, and I really want to say howdy and thanks to the Cistercian fathers and those other sainted teachers who are here tonight. Father Julius, God bless you, and Bobby Hauser and Rodney Walter and Charlie Tusa, for heaven's sakes. 8th grade, we had a pretty good team. 8th grade, absolutely. Yeah, Charlie was our football coach back in 8th grade. Just a wonderful, wonderful fellow. And all these guys helped to kickstart my life. They really did. And so I really appreciate seeing your smiling faces out there. I've seen Rodney and Bobby a little bit more frequently, certainly than you, Charlie. It's been a few years, but it's really cool to see you guys here tonight. And I also want to say hi to the Cistercians that have passed on to their assuredly eternal reward. And Kevin mentioned a couple of them. Father Damien. He was our first headmaster, a man of inestimable character, patience, understanding, and warmth. I mean, he was a stern headmaster, but you could always, he always was welcoming. You could always sit down and talk to Father Damien. He was like, if there was a father figure for us at Cistercian, it was Father Damien, one of the great artists that we'll ever see. I remember Tim Sullivan and I went to see him in his studio one time and walked away with 2 of Father Damien's sculptures. I mean, they're almost priceless. So, you know, Father Damien was very, very special to us. And Father Melchior that Kevin mentioned, our first form master, a true friend for our whole life. He really was. He's our confidant for over 50 years. We lost him relatively recently, and I really miss Father Melchior. He was a very, very special person to us. And that he's gone is almost unbelievable. I was, as Kevin said, I was privileged to deliver Father Melchior's eulogy, and I was also privileged, Emily and I were, for him when he went to a convalescent facility, actually a nursing home. It was about 3 blocks from our house, and which was really lucky for us, and it enabled us to have countless conversations with Father Melchior and to bring him special sauce, which was red wine, you know, sneaking it into him, and he would have, did you bring this special sauce? Yeah, Father, what about me, you know? God, you know, so, yeah, we brought you wine, you know. So, and Emily would go over, and Emily trimmed his fingernails, you know, from time to time. He wouldn't get, she stopped short of a pedicure. But we would go there pretty frequently. And see Father Melchior and all the rest that have passed on. Kevin mentioned them, Father Henry, gentle Father Henry, and Father Matthew, just always a smile, and Father Balthazar, of course, Father Thomas and Father Placid and the like. Great men, great mentors and friends of ours. We didn't realize really what great friends they were until after we were gone. Somehow it's like that, but. Miss them all terribly. And Father Balthazar, that he also brought up, Father B, that we moved out to South Lake, and we were going to Mass in Grapevine, a little bitty white church, and we received communion out the window. It was so crowded. This was back in 1983 or 84, something like that, and the girls were all with us, and went in, and it was Father B, you know, saying Mass, and he knew that he had a live one as when I walked in. And for the next, gosh, how many years, 15 or 20 years, St. Francis was basically our second home. And I did teach altar boys and altar girls. All 3 of my girls were altar servers. It wasn't in Latin. You didn't have it nearly as hard as we did. Latin. Latin was great. You know, Father Damien also taught us Latin and speed conjugation, which seemed that there was a double entendre in there somewhere. But we were conjugating verbs, and it's like, how's that? 1.5 seconds of conjugating the Latin word for I love. So that's what it was kind of like back there, just strange happenings like that. But they all come rushing back. You can remember all of that. And Father Balthazar, he was a great man. The first time that I ever met him, I remember exactly. The first time I ever met Father B, it was 1962, and we were in the library of the house that we were going to school in. Our first year, we went to class in the bedroom, and the second year we went to class in the living room, and the third year we went to class in the helps quarters out here. So, but anyway, Father B was sitting across a table from me, and there was like 5 of us in French class or something, and I was fooling around like I always do, and he just did this, and we all kind of sat straight upright, and he just leaned over and looked me in my eyes, and he had these piercing eyes, this hawk-like nose, and he said, "Williams, I'm sick of your flippancy." I almost died. Right? I mean, I was scared to death, you know, and I'd never heard anybody call me Williams. It sounded, you know, very, very Eastern European, you know. And I was scared to death, and I had no idea what flippancy meant. You know, I had to go up and look that up, you know. I'm like, oh God, you know. I wasn't going to tell Mom and Dad that I was accused of being flippant by Father B. So anyway, Father B was just a wonderful, wonderful guy, and you know, I miss Father B a lot too, as does everybody else. All of our friends out there at St. Francis. We got to be so tight with everybody out there. I want to say a special thanks to my family who are here tonight. My brother Steve. Steve is an alum. He was 2 years behind me. And he was pressed into service our first year of football as the quarterback. Talk about, you know, beads of sweat, you know, popping out on your forehead. But our quarterback, Tim Sullivan, who also happens to be the godfather of my daughter Mary, was injured, and Steve came in and he performed wonderfully. And to this day, I think we hold a record that will never be broken. The number of passes from one brother to another that were dropped. Regrettably, Steve did the passing and I did the dropping. Yeah, well, we had a few touchdowns, I guess, between us, but no, those were good times. And Steve after that, this is a weird transition, but Steve after that goes from being a quarterback to being a linebacker, put on a few hefty pounds, and was one of the greatest football players in the first decade of Cistercian. In fact, he was on the all-decade team. So, and he's sitting here right there, and God bless you, Steve. I love you. My sister Martha, she was our little sister, and just the love of our lives growing up. She's six and a half years younger than me, and I always just figured, you know, she would. We were at Cistercian, you know, those first years, and she was there with us, and I can just see her talking to herself, Mother, why are the boys dressed so oddly? And, you know, all the rest of the children are normal, and they're waiting on the green bus, you know, and indeed, that was our life. You know, we went down as 10-year-olds dressed in a necktie and stood on the corner waiting for a green bus, which is weird, you know. I mean, and everybody else would make fun of us and everything like that. But heck, that's a Cistercian way, isn't it? You know. So anyway, but all three of my daughters are here, just absolutely the bright shining stars of Emily and my lives. Betsy and Anna and Mary. Anna's here. She's an attorney with our law firm. And Mary came down from Chicago, and Betsy came in from Atlanta. And I just love you all to death. And finally, as Kevin said, Emily, who is my soulmate. In August of 1970 is when we met. The first week of orientation at Vanderbilt, August of 1970. So that'll be 50 years coming up this summer. And she was introduced, I snaked her away from Sim Slayton, who was a classmate in the class of 70. He also happened to be at Vanderbilt. But we've been together forever. She is, she said, don't talk about me, so I won't, but just take a look at my overly long bio, and you'll see just what a tremendous woman this is. I can't, well, I could take all night long telling you about Emily and everything that she does, everything she has done, and what a great support she has been for me all these years. And I love you, hon. I can't tell you how much. Special thanks to, again, to the awards committee, again, for an awful lapse of judgment. And I asked Erin for the people's names, and she wouldn't give them to me. I think she was just embarrassed for them all. So anyway, I do appreciate the award committee and the award I'm getting tonight, and also thanks to our parents, everybody's parents. Back in the day, and these were courageous people. I asked my mom, why did you send me to Cistercian? And they never really had an answer. It was just serendipitous, you know. See, I don't know. But for whatever reason, you know, that they shared the vision that the Cistercian fathers had back then for a school for boys. And I'll appreciate that for the rest of my life. I didn't know it then, but I certainly know it now. It was a little miracle. That they dropped me off at Cistercian that day in 1962. And a brief recognition of the prior recipients. Kevin told you about Steve, and I've seen Mr. Moroney and Mr. Bloodgood and others around here, and it is an impressive group of people. A lot of magna cum laudes, and I'm not going to say, I'm not worthy, but they are really, these are the kind of men that Cistercian dreamt of graduating way back then when we started. A very, very impressive group of gentlemen, and I am honored to be in their company, and I say that with all sincerity. So I've struggled with what to say this evening, and it's not for want of material. The wild years that we had at Cistercian, those first 8 years, the first few years after graduation, and really the lessons I've learned over my entire life from Cistercian. There are so many things to talk about, so many things to go over, and I just don't have nearly enough time. It's maddening trying to distill all of this into just a few minutes of your time. I'm going to do my best here. But again, it's very difficult to get all of this together. And I had the same problem with this article that I wrote for the Continuum. Kevin mentioned that, and I talked to Erin, and I was halfway through it, and she said 3,000 words, and I ended up having 5,650 words. I mean, that's how much material I had. And so tons of stuff got left on the cutting room floor just because there's so many experiences and so much fun that we had at Cistercian, both during and afterwards. It's just it kind of epitomizes what Cistercian is to all of us, just all of these events that we've gone through over the years. And really, unless you've lived it, it's impossible to appreciate the experience and the memories that we've had from Cistercian. So, where to begin? I envisioned a meeting up in the firmament, and God the Father is presiding, and the other celestial stars are up there with him, and they go into executive session, and God the Father says, I'm going to put, the number one on the agenda was the Hungarian Cistercians, and he says, I'm going to put these people to work. And one of the, probably St. Bernard, but one of the other saints there said, Father, they've been through a very difficult time. These are some of the most courageous men you will ever see after World War II, and the religious persecution that they had to go through, and to escape that and to finally get here. Why don't you give them a few decades to, and God the Father says, no, I'm going to make them teach 9 and 10-year-old boys and girls. And they said, no, okay, just boys. All right, well, still, Father, it's a little bit much for them, don't you think? And not only that, I'm sending them to America to teach 9 and 10-year-old. But Father, you're a merciful God. And no, I'm going to teach them. I'm going to send them to Texas. No, Father, no. So it's a done deal. It's a done deal. And so it began. And so here they were in 1962. God bless them all. And so here we are today. And that's really where it all began. You know, we were such an odd lot. You know, I think we referred to odd ducks back then, back in 1962, and we were plugged into this fantasy world. And really, you know, you guys know it, that were there with me and Paul, and it really was something that nobody else, I'm sure, has ever experienced. It was absolutely unique. And I'll spend a few minutes just talking to you about it, because you really can't appreciate it unless you were there. Maybe it's just a good old days conceit, you know. Everything's better way back then. I mean, my day, you know, but it really was something really, really special back then. And I can't imagine a more perfect setting for a young boy's imagination to come to life, and all the while being infused with this font of knowledge by these brilliant people that just were dropped in our laps. I mean, it's just divine providence, blind luck, whatever. But there we were, running through fields with neckties on, you know, and going through creeks and falling down and getting muddy every recess. And we would just go out. We didn't go out to the playground. They just opened the doors and let us into forests and trees and rivers and creeks. And it was everybody with it was Harry Potter. You know, it was like Harry Potter without the wand. You know, it was really and without the girls. So it was. But it was a very special time in our lives back then, one that we'll never forget. And these were the formative years, by golly. So, I mean, this is the stuff that stays with you. I mean, really, all of that we went through back there in those 8 years is still part of us here. And the people that taught us, seeing all these faces out here, it all kind of forms the person that grows up after school and after Cistercian. And there's so many memories. I mean, I could go on forever, but Father Paul said, keep it under 2 hours. So I'll just touch on a few things here. But back then, the third year we were there, this is just a very few, so just a couple of minutes. The third year we were there, we were in a building, not the house, but we were building outside. We were going to be there for half a year. And it was very Dickensian. I mean, we would hang our coats on hangers on a movable coat rack, and in the back there was a stove to keep us warm, and really was like a one room schoolhouse or something. And we were out there, and the stove would get really, really hot back there, and it had an open flame. And for whatever reason, I took a coat hanger off there, and I guess just to see if it turned red, I started roasting the coat hanger. And it sure did. It turned red, and then I was distracted, and I turned around, and I branded John Bush for life in the back of his neck. And he has that John Bush. He's one of the most a tremendous emergency room surgeons in America. So maybe I started him out there. Who knows? But yeah, but he's still got that scar, and I feel almost bad about it. And then just my experience back then, and Charlie Tusa can appreciate this, but in eighth grade football, you couldn't be a wide receiver and you couldn't play in the backfield if you weighed 130 pounds. And I was exactly the same height when I was 13 as I am right now. And they had to keep me under 130 pounds. So just imagine what I look like. And as a matter of fact, you can see a picture of me, if you look in the alumni news, and I mean, I look scary, like a POW or something. It's just I had no weight. But then ironically, 2 years later, we were getting ready for our first football season, real football season. And I was told by the football coach, it was Tolliver at the time, but Bill Coombs ended up coaching us. He says, Charlie, you need to put on some weight. And I said, damn, that's not what they told me 2 years ago. And so I was eating 4 meals a day and protein milkshakes, to get up. And finally, that first game I got there, and there was a program that Cistercian had proudly put out, and it had Charlie Williams, 185 pounds. They just didn't want to know, what little weakling wimps we were, I guess. I wasn't within 25 pounds of 185 pounds. But, whatever, just, lay low and nobody will see what a skinny, pathetic human being you are. So anyway, just a couple of things, and I don't want to go on and on. Anybody know John Wilbur here? Show of hands, John Wilbur. Ah, yes. John Wilbur was an unknown second string offensive guard with the Dallas Cowboys back then. And just to give you an idea of how strange our thinking was, I think it was Jim Pritchard. He said at the time they had the Oak Lawn, the Oak Farms most popular cowboy contest. And we figured out that the Cowboys would give 10,000 ballots to everybody who was the president of a fan club. And so I was the Tommy McDonald fan club, and everybody got to be a president of a fan club, and we ended up stuffing the ballot box. And there on Central Expressway, the most popular cowboy was John Wilbur. And people just be walking, who the hell is John Wilbur? And it got so embarrassing, and he won. But the Cowboys called us up and called John and says, we can't put this guy as the most popular cowboy. So, we're going to make Bob Lilly the most popular cowboy. And we said, okay, but they ended up giving John Wilbur and his entire family like a 2-week vacation to Hawaii and a check for God knows whatever. So that's just the kind of strange times those were, that we wasted our time doing, the John Wilbur fan club. So, again, there were so many things. I just can't. One of the most memorable priests we had was Father John Baird. He was a memorable priest for a number of reasons, and Rodney is nodding his head over here. But Father John, he looked like he was going to beat you up. And he walked with a limp. It looked like he should have a cigar in his hand. But he would call us little brothers. We were little brothers, and I'll never forget being a little brother. And it was like, you always get to make fun of the Hungarian accent. That's just part of Cistercian, And going back, and they've used all the good material with the accents and all the prior Moroney Award dinners and the like, but little brothers, and Father Rock was great. He told us one time that he was going Adiuti. And Adayudy, I guess, Adiuty. Anybody know what Adiuty means? I mean, it meant I'm going over to the University of Dallas. But in his English, it was, I'm going Adiuty. And so that's the kind of thing that we would, and so that's the kind of stuff that we were dealing with back then. And it was special. But I don't know. I'm probably not alone in this respect. Seriously, I don't remember the bad times. I know that Rodney and Bobby and all the rest that remember plenty of bad times, but for me, for whatever reason, I just see it through, the glasses get rosier every year for me. I remember all the good stuff and very little of the bad stuff at Cistercian, and I guess that's just a testimony to Cistercian. So, with all that, looking back, what did Cistercian do for a young boy? Well, first of all, he taught me how to study, and how to learn. And these priests did that almost unwittingly as far as we were concerned, but by the time I was out of Cistercian and I went off to college, I knew how to study. I knew how to make good grades. And they did a great job of that. And part of that was intimidation. Because, really intimidation. When I was a 10-year-old boy, and usually when you're in 5th grade, you get a report card and it has an A or a B or a C or something like that. And if you get a C or something worse, you take it home and you're worrying about that. But in our report cards, there was just one card, and on the other side, it had comments, and it was horrible. And I swear, this is a paraphrase, but Mr. and Mrs. Williams, Charlie really sucked at math this semester. And, but there would be things like that. Charlie, the worst was, I'm very disappointed in Charlie. And you would carry those report cards home, and there was like a brick in your satchel carrying them home. You just this fear and this worry when they opened and turned it around, and I'm very disappointed in Charlie. So what do you say to your parents when something like that is sitting right in front of them? So just the sheer intimidation of making a bad grade was part of it. And part of it was helping, at least for me, and I can only speak for myself, helping you really, really like something you were interested in. They would introduce you to something, and if it took, we ran with it. It was so much fun. I got so into history, first with Father Bede, and then with Rodney Walter, who taught us history for a long, long time, and his way of conveying not just what happened, but why. I just found it fascinating. And in our field trips, it was just an invaluable time for me, and Rodney doesn't know that, but it was a very, very special time for me, and I majored in history at Vanderbilt. So I loved history and writing. You talked about writing earlier today, and the recent continuum. And one of our teachers, I think it was Paul McCardle, he just had us write. He just laid a tablet in front of us and said, write. And I don't care what you write, keep it clean, but just write. And that's what I did. And just filled up tablets with thoughts and everything. He didn't care what you wrote, but get that pen out and get some ink on paper. And it was inspirational for me. And I love to write to this very day. I think it's it's such an easy way to convey things inside of you. So writing really has been a special part of my life. And one of our classmates, my best friend really back then, Jack Brennan, went on to be a sports writer in Fort Worth, and then Memphis, and then Cincinnati for the Cincinnati Press Scimitar and the other Cincinnati paper, and then went on to 20 years with the Cincinnati Bengals. But that was his avocation, probably mine too. And when we were at Vanderbilt, the first year, our freshman year, the guy that lived next door to me on our freshman dorm was Skip Bayless. And believe it or not, Skip was a nice guy back then. Emily would say, "Oh, what happened to Skip?" You know, he's such a jerk now, you know, but he was a really, it's a faux personality. He was a really nice guy, and he wrote for the student newspaper and asked me if I would too. He was the Grantland Rice recipient and really a good writer back then. So writing, anything that I was really interested in, they nurtured at Cistercian. And they also and at Cistercian, they also tended to enkindle certain subjects that you really didn't give a darn about, you know, but they taught it in such a way that it became interesting to you. And just a couple of examples. One of them was Father Thomas, and I can't describe Father Thomas to y'all who don't know Father Thomas. God bless him and God rest his soul. He was one of the sweetest people ever to walk the face of the earth, and we took full advantage of the poor man. But he taught us geography. You know, not geography, but Father Thomas would get there and he'd write on the blackboard and he would draw the state of Texas like this. Done. You know, just like he would draw Texas exactly like that. And it looked sort of like the state of Texas. But that's all it needed to look like, because here's Dallas and here's Fort Worth, here's Odessa in the middle. And I memorized every single bit of that, because he said, this is Texas, this is where everything is, this is the Llano Estacado. And just by virtue of this interesting way of putting forth a subject that otherwise I didn't give a darn about, he really got me into geography. And then Father Damien as well with Latin and the Latin Mass. The Latin Mass was really something. I'm so glad that we all said, when we were altar boys, we said the Mass in Latin. And then you can fake like you really know Latin. If you see somebody else that also was an altar boy and you can speak back and forth in Latin, nobody knows what you're talking about. You know, and like one of them, and this is probably a bad thing to admit, but Kevin mentioned Tom St. Macton's a dear friend of ours that lives up in D.C., and the Fighting Mulligans golf team. And one time I said, Saint non sum dignus et interest subtectum meum sictantum de verbo et sanabitur my golf game mea. Yeah, and which means, Saint, I'm not worthy to come under your roof, but only say the word and my golf game will be healed. He just sat there and said, what the hell are you talking about? So it sounds pretty impressive, doesn't it? So anyway, Latin and Father Rock in theology, God bless him. He had the toughest time of all, because he went through that period of time where it was just rote acceptance from us. You know, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. Then sometime in 7th grade or 8th grade, it was, I don't know about that, Father Rock, you know, one of these things. And it was like in 67, 68, 69, 70. These were turbulent years, and there were a lot of guesswork and a lot of serious thinking going on back there. And Father Rock weathered the storm, and we would put him through the grinder on theological thoughts and theological messages that he was trying to get across from us. And he never wavered, and he always made it interesting for us. He always would talk, and he had this droll sense of humor, and still does. So he made theology somehow interesting to us, at least to me. A very, very cool guy, still with us, and I haven't seen him I saw him when I did the Continuum, had a great conversation, both him and Father Dennis. So in any event, Father Rock and even Father Dennis had a really weak moment. One time, one golden semester, I got an A- from Father Dennis. And I brought that up when I was interviewing him for the Continuum RB, and he denied that it happened. I said, no, I swear, I'll bring you my report card. I have the report card. He said, I don't ever remember giving you an A-, Williams. I said, yeah. I mean, somehow he got me interested in geometry and trigonometry, you know, sines and cosines and tangents and angles and all this kind of stuff. And otherwise, I'm horrible at math. But even Father Dennis managed to make something like that interesting to me. So that's really how Cistercian taught us and what we took out of it, and how Cistercian laid all this stuff on us. Cistercian taught me that it is important to absorb things around you. And I can't remember the specific teachers that I would talk to from time to time. He says, don't go through life with blinders on, for gosh sakes. You know, absorb everything around you and learn from over there, and learn peripherally here, and to bring everything together, because life is a banquet. And there's many, many things to learn and to appreciate in life. So just absorb everything, how to think, how to solve problems. And all through the trials and tribulations and the testing and the give and take that we had with the priests then, the patience and tolerance between the Cistercians and the lay teachers and us back then, there emerged a kind of a recipe really for a pretty balanced young man in a serious world. They prepared us. And I cannot thank them enough. It wasn't, what we walked out probably wasn't the recipe they anticipated in 1962. You know, we ended up being like a batch of burnt cookies or something like that. But, you know, after that, you know, they got it together, you know, and they could put the class of 70 in the rearview mirror and say, okay, they're gone, they're done. So let's get serious about this. And they did. And the recipe is there. And they create great men at Cistercian. They truly do. It's a miraculous thing to look at what Cistercian has become, and to talk and to look at these gentlemen that have graduated from Cistercian, and now 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, what they and we have become. And I'm kind of proud to be a burnt cookie, to be honest with you. Whatever, I mean, Cistercian was good to me. So there's a lot of serious matters we've had to deal with, you know, every day for 50 years. Responsibilities to clients and family and community, to others less fortunate, which is something that Emily and I really try to focus on. We retired last year, and now we have time to really do the things that we wanted to do for a long, long time, but didn't have the time on our hands. Cistercian created an atmosphere that really nurtured not only the ability to deal with all those daily, you know, furrowed brows that we have when we're practicing law or raising kids or whatever, but also to recognize the value of humor and creativity. And humor and creativity were at the forefront when we were there from 62 to 1970. And it stays with us today. They taught us compassion and camaraderie and the value of friendship. And it all is stuck. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And if you don't temper, they taught us, if you don't temper the intensity and the angst of life with a good measure of joy and youthful exuberance and love and with an open face, then you're missing a bet. You're really missing a bet. And a lot of that came from Cistercian. Like I said, these were the formative years. And all that stuff, that, as silly as it sounds for me this evening, it sticks with you. And it sticks with you, and it's good stuff. It really is. And I'm blessed to have gone to Cistercian. I have to remind myself every day, I get up every morning, and I don't say, God, this is a great Cistercian morning. You know, I'm not that much of a Cistercian guy. God, it's another great Cistercian day today. You know? No, it's not quite that. But nonetheless, you know, I'm kind of a mirror guy, and I put things on mirrors. It's just an affectation of some people. You know, if I got a really good saying or something that I want to hold on to, or something that means something to me, or, you know, that has something, you know, relatively intelligent that might be of benefit to me as I continue to grow into a decent man. And I put them up there, and I took one thing down, which is to me kind of emblematic of what Cistercian expects of us and what we should expect of one another. And believe it or not, it's called The Man in the Glass. And I've got the tape is still here from my mirror, as a matter of fact. And I just wanted to read it to you. Again, as you look at yourself in the morning, you know, if you're not doing yourself any favors, then you're not going to be a success in life. You have to love yourself. And this is actually what Bill Parcells read to his New York Giants football team on the eve of the Super Bowl. And he was quoting from a piece by Dale Wimbrough. And it says, when you get what you want in your struggle for self and the world makes you king for a day, just go to a mirror and look at yourself and see what that man has to say. For it isn't your father, mother, or wife whose judgment upon you must pass. The fellow whose verdict counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. Some people may think you're a straight-shooting chum and call you a wonderful guy, but if the man in the glass says you're really a bum, if you can't look him straight in the eye, he's the fellow to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear up to the end, and you've passed your most dangerous, difficult test if the man in the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world, down the pathway of life and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartaches and tears if you cheated the man in the glass. So with that, thank you all very much, and I want to close with what Father B closes with all of his emails, and that is simply Pax. Pax vobiscum, and thanks very much.